I'd like to know if you've ever considered your cultural safety in our public places and spaces. When I refer to cultural safety, I mean a sense of belonging, that you feel seen, respected, and celebrated, able to participate. Many of us don't ask this question when we're engaging with places that we call home, because our culture dominates that place and we feel safe. I'd like to thank Ani Delta for her welcome to country and acknowledge that we're here on Arakwal Bundjalung country. For us mob, we always allowed country to rule and reign in our public places and spaces. Actually, we kind of didn't have public spaces because there was no private ownership and we all had obligations for country. When I'm referring to country, I mean the land, the species, the sky, the water, and us as humans. We believe that we're all interconnected through our law, or LORE. It gives us our identity, our protocols, and our guidance. We don't see a landscape as separated sacred sites, but we see a cultural landscape. And as Ani Delta says, sacredness is a blanket over country. My name is Elle Davidson. I'm a Balangara woman from the East Kimberley, born on Gadigal country and have called Bundjalung country home for 25 years. I'm a descendant of Captain William Bligh, one of the first governors of New South Wales, this state we find ourselves in. He was also the main star of the mutiny on the Bounty, if you've heard of it. That coloniser blood runs through my veins. As an Aboriginal and white town planner, I'm passionate about decolonising our public places and spaces and creating cultural safety for Aboriginal people. Our current planning framework has been set up to disenfranchise Aboriginal people, and I feel committed to decolonising the planning system. I think I might need a bit of help. I'd like you to all close your eyes for a visualisation exercise. I'd like you to think of a place that you visited as a child, the type of place that was handed down through generations. Maybe your family took you there and they told you of their family taking them there. The type of place that you'd like to hand on to your children or your children's children. I'd like you to think about how you feel in that place. What can you hear? What can you see? What can you smell? What are your family's attitudes in that place? How are they interacting with each other? And I'd like you to think about returning to that place and it being cleared and having new building and development. And as you return, you hear of stories of genocide, of slavery, of blood being shed, of your family. And as you look around in that place, those stories of your family are not acknowledged. Their connections to that place, the traumatic events, none of it recognised. And even worse, you're required to call that place after the person responsible for the bloodshed. I'd like you to open your eyes and consider that that's how some Aboriginal people interact with our most public places. I walk down the main street of Mullumbimby, my hometown, a quiet, progressive town, 15 minutes from here, although I'm not sure it's that quiet anymore. And aside from the name, which means small mountain, I don't see country or culture or community celebrated in that place. I don't feel culturally safe. Less than 200 metres from here is a new artwork that's been commissioned by Arakwal women Nicola and Caitlin Clark. It beautifully depicts their values and stories and connection to this country, and it's something that we can all celebrate. Just above it is a screen which includes some colonial stories of this place, and in the background is a heritage water tower used for steam locomotives moving through this place. The government documents relating to this project have a lot of information about the water tower and about these colonial stories, but very little about the Aboriginal values and story of this place. I'd like you to have a look at this picture and think about the proportion of the artwork, the screening, and the water tower, and just consider whether you think that's balanced. Thankfully, there's another piece of this artwork which is in a more prominent location. Regardless, I'm grateful because these are the first steps in decolonising our public places and creating cultural safety. Let's go to Western Sydney, or Darug country, Darug. On the left is an image of Waianamarra. In the local language, that means mother's place. It's always been an important part of country for Darug people, particularly Darug women, because they came and traded white clay and ochre, and it was a movement corridor for many of the surrounding nations. My colleague and Yuin woman, Danielle Homrek, highlighted the female nature of this country with her soft, undulating, rolling hills. And we've both heard stories from Darug people about just how important this part of country is. I too have my own connection to this part of country because Captain William Bligh was given land grants on Darug country. I feel responsible for decolonising planning decisions that are made on Darug Nura. On the right is John Bradfield. He's some old white dude who helped to design and construct the Sydney Harbour Bridge 45 kilometres as the crow flies from Waianamarra. As a result of a new international airport being built right next to Waianamarra, a new city will be developed, and it will be called Bradfield. I still have trouble saying it. Can you imagine what it would feel like for a Darug person? When the announcement was made, I grieved. A fire lit inside of me, and I wanted to burn something down. And then I realised it wasn't really my style or the best way of getting things done. So instead, I engaged my most powerful weapon, my voice. Maybe one of the many reasons why I find myself standing on this stage today. I started to encourage dialogue about the impact of this decision, not only for Darug people, but the whole of the Western Sydney Aboriginal community, which is the largest Aboriginal population of any region in Australia. We might not be able to change the outcome, but I sure hope that we learn from our mistakes because cultural safety in our public places is important. Finally, I'd like to take you to Yagan Square in Perth, Western Australia on Noongar country. Yagan Square has been named after a Noongar resilience fighter. I remember the first time that I went there. I felt safe. I felt seen. I felt celebrated. I felt respected. I just felt different when I was there. And after doing a little bit of research on my trusty iPhone, I found out that there was a very strong partnership between the government and the Noongar people to embed country, community and culture into this place. The pathways through the site acknowledge movement patterns of Noongar people through country. The canopy on the top level respects water movement through country. Young children engage with Noongar landforms in the playscape underneath the trees. The 14 poles around the digital tower acknowledge the language groups of the Noongar people. And country's colours are celebrated throughout the development. This is truly the practice of decolonising our public spaces and creating cultural safety. I'm grateful for the change that I see. The draft Connecting with Country framework, led by Mullumbimby architect Dylan Combermary, encourages state government projects to listen to country and embed what they hear into their project outcomes. I feel excited to be part of this process and honoured to be able to bring people like my cultural mentor, Waka Waka woman Belle Arnold, on this journey with me. But this is for everyone. My dominant culture is white. I grew up with a white family, in a white home, with my own privilege. I saw the world through a lens of white, with a tinge of black. I had to commit to decolonising my own mind. Through the practice of humility and deep listening, I now understand the importance of cultural safety in our public places and spaces. It's not like I walked down the main street of Mullumbimby as a teenager and went, I feel culturally unsafe. No. I've had to understand the silence. I've had to see the colonial dominance in our public spaces, and I invite you to do the same. In closing, I'm going to start my favourite quote, and I hope some in the audience might join me in finishing. Always was, always will be. Aboriginal land. Bulgulba.